Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Coaches Table, where you get a chance to have a conversation with four coaches who are going to dive deep into a topic and give you insight on our experiences, our backgrounds, and any insights and gold nuggets that we have on this topic. We'd love to hear back from you as well. So feel free to join in on the conversation in the comments as you're watching this. Whether you're watching in the morning or the evening, whether you are in a different part of the world than we are, we welcome you to the conversation. Welcome to the table. So we always start off with some celebration and gratitude. So let's go ahead and start with some celebrations and gratitudes. Brian, what are you grateful for today?
Today, Pearl Jam just dropped a new album. It's awesome.
Oh, I didn't know they were still releasing music.
I know, yes, I know. Back in the day, yeah, they still are, and it's a great album so far. I've only got to spin it once.
On the same day Taylor Swift releases her new album. That's a bold
Yeah,
move.
yes,
Oh,
for
that's awesome.
Taylor. Yeah.
I love that. Occam, who is our guest coach, what are you celebrating? What are you grateful for?
Today, I'm really celebrating my life in general, but the blossoms on the trees, right? Springtime, the weather's turning, the baby animals are starting to show up. And this is my favorite time of year.
And because you live on like a massive plot of land, like there's like a pond on your land, like there's multiple water pieces on your land.
Yeah, it's 80 acres out here in Southern Oregon. I'm definitely blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Heather, what are you celebrating? What are you grateful for?
That is awesome. How come I'm loving spring too? I used to be a total fall, like 100% fall, but there's something about the spring now, just kind of the new and everything waking up again. So I love that too. I am grateful for all of my boys, particularly my youngest. In just a few weeks is graduating high school, so it's kind of a crazy, exciting new stage. I have all adult children. My
How are
youngest is
you 100% don't look like you have all adult children, Heather.
No.
it's because
That's
I like to
wild.
still live like I'm 25.
Yeah, you got to be doing something right. You got to be doing something right.
That is awesome. I am
I
gonna
want
go
to
ahead.
add. Can I
Oh,
just add something really quick? I just heard another person on the show talk about this. I thought it was so cool. They're like, in nature, everyone hibernates in the winter, and spring is when everyone comes alive. And she was saying, I don't know why we don't start the new year in March at the beginning of spring. And I was like, that made so much sense.
Oh yeah, there's a whole belief system of like the new year is not on the 1st of January, right? And I
Yeah,
agree because it's when the buds come, it's when the babies show up, the baby bunnies, the baby chicks, all the animals, the birds are all in spring. So why do a New Year's resolution in the depth of the coldest, lowest time of the year, right?
yeah.
I think that's hope for all of us who set New Year's resolutions on January 1, and then by March, April 1, we're like, what? I don't even remember what that resolution was.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity to reignite a new affirmation and resolution for ourselves. I'm going to go ahead and celebrate my daughter. She is 18 months and she is saying like 50 plus words. She is signing. She loves saying dada and she loves saying no, and she doesn't really say yes, but she does shake her head up and down, which is the cutest thing ever. And every single morning she wakes up with a massive smile on her face, excited to see us. And I think about how as such a child, like there's just she just wakes up so happy and excited, and the experience I get as a dad to witness and be on the recipient side of like that big smile. Imagine being able to give that to everybody you come in contact with. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you, and like, you're here. Like, it's wow, it's the best thing ever. So it's pretty awesome. I
Kind of
do want to
reminds
get
me of that joke about be the person your dog sees you as, because your dog is always excited to see you. Like, like what if we went through life like that? For sure.
yeah, that's so good. Okay, so today's topic is presence or power or process, presence or process, and we are exploring as coaches. We get into these sessions where we have powerful conversations, we're challenging people, we're asking questions, we're creating insight, we're creating spaces for clarity. And I am very formulaic. Like, I think in formulas, I think in frameworks, I think in systems. um, and I have experienced the power of kind of tossing that to the side at times and just being present. And then I also know some people who are just very present and there's power in that presence, and it leaves clients potentially wanting more practical tacticals. So I'm curious to hear from you, each of you, what your perspective is. Do you tend to lead with process, or do you tend to lead with presence, and why? Let's go ahead and go with our guest today, Occam.
Yeah, I'm always more of the presence person, right? Because I have a poor memory, right? So for me, if I'm coming into something being like, wait, I've got to do step one, step two, and step three, then I will flub it up and I'll be thinking about what the next thing I have to do is instead of just being in the moment. And whereas my gift is intuition as opposed to your gift being analytical, right? So my gift is to be like feeling the person and what needs to happen next, and then where can I go? And that being said, there's plenty of room for that structure, right? For especially in the beginning, what are some steps and some questions that you can get a person to a point where they're having an awareness, then slip into the presence, and then have process for aftercare or follow up, right? So that is a little bit of both, but in my coaching, it's mostly being in the present moment because I've said things that I didn't know, right? I've said things that taught me because it was just what was coming up in that moment. It was what was right for that client, would not have been right for another client. So that's just how I work with my intuition and my gifts.
Yeah, I love it. We have team presence for one and team process for one. Let's go with Brian.
I'm both. And I am very much a process person. And I really believe we serve powerfully with a process because it gives people a sense of safety if there is a clear beginning, middle, and end. And I think about the process in terms of a story. And so when we think about, I use the grow model, start off, what's your goal? What's your intention for today? What are you dealing with? What's your reality? And then what are your options? So many people forget that they have options. And then we want to get into the next steps. And so often I find if I don't have that model, we could spend a ton of time just talking about problems, or we could spend a ton of time of getting to that amazing, oh my goodness, insight. But then you leave and there's no action plan to do anything with it. So I really keep that loose structure, but then I try to be present in each of those.
I love it. Heather, team presence or team process?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I was in my coaching journey, I have become more team presence. And it started with process. I would say in general, I'm not a process person. I'm a fly by the seat of the pants. Let's go in, dive in, get to know someone and just kind of build a relationship with them and see where the conversations go. Those are so powerful. It's not where I started because I felt like I had to have a process. It was more of I was trying to prove to myself, not even my client. I was trying to prove to myself that I'm worthy of them coming into my space and I have something I can really help them. And so when I shifted out of that, it actually took some practice because it was like, but I need to give them something. And that's where they're going to find the value. And the more I walked away from that and being in presence and just asking the questions and not thinking about how I'm even going to respond, but just kind of like Occam was saying, just intuitively following it, the impact that they have made was so much more exponential valuable to them. And at the end of the conversation, you're like, wow, this was amazing. And the days when I feel like, did I even do anything? Did I even share anything? Like those are the days that really matter. And so that's where I think team presence really plays a role and it really shines.
I love that. This whole conversation is making me think about something that keeps me in process, and that is time management as a coach. And you think about where you're wanting to get. So, let's start with Sean because Akka went first last time. How do you really kind of manage through that time management if you're being fully present? Do you just stop where you are because ding, the clock is up, we'll pick it up next time? Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think this is where presence plays a role in. I'm very framework oriented, system oriented, analytical, like I mentioned before. So I try and block out the agenda for our session, identify, okay, we're going to cover this, 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 and this, because that's what they're struggling with last week, or that's what we covered last week. And I tend to lead with more of the practical. What I have found is sometimes that can become overwhelming for people of going through all of the processes, when sometimes what people need is just the first step and to sit with it. So something I've done is I've actually reduced my coaching sessions from an hour to 30 minutes, and I only focus on one thing in those 30 minutes. And so in those 30 minutes, we focus on one thing, and then I give them homework to sit in the process I just gave them, process it for themselves emotionally, mentally, see where it aligns. And it reminds me of that quote, slow down to speed up. If I give them 4 or 5 things to do, they might do 3 of them okay. But if I give them one thing and really help them understand that one insight and help them, have their life reflect that, I think it's powerful.
I think to tap into that, one thing that I think about is something that I just heard recently, as far as the information that you absorb, right? Within, I think, the first 24 hours, 50% of what you've learned is gone. And within 72 hours, 80% of it is gone. So that is another huge reason to go into what you're talking about, Shawn, of sharing one thing, letting them dive in and really go deep, is because they're taking action right away, and they're going to be able to have even better results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Occam, I'm curious from our guest, what do you think?
I definitely would say that's where the framework helps, right? So I use a little bit of a different framework because I'm doing energy work and coaching simultaneously. But by keeping that framework, the cares, the connecting, assessing, reprogramming, eliminating, and shielding, at least I know that sometimes one client's going to need more time in that area, right? And so to just keep that open as like, these are all things we're going to cover. But I agree absolutely that if you hit them with too much, they're like, wait, I had 4 breakthroughs. What was the most important breakthrough? So to holding that space and not overloading them. But I do find that the external framework allows that presence to be integrated and adaptive within that framework.
I also think, and we'll do this, is there are times where I'm focused on the person, and as I'm sharing something or as they're sharing something, I notice body language, and I notice tone, and I notice speed of how they're sharing. And by pointing some of those things out, or even just acknowledging those things, it helps you coach even more powerfully. To be able to say, hey, I noticed you started talking. Can I point something out? Like, you started talking about this one topic and you sped up, your voice pitched higher, you got really animated. Where's that coming from? Where's that energy coming from? And I think, Occam, you might have a lot of insight into that. But before we jump into that, I do want to share we have our One Client Away Challenge coming up. You can easily find out more about this by going to clientchallenge.com. If you're a coach and you're looking to scale your business to 7 figures, you're looking to hit a new level, next level in your coaching practice by adding more revenue streams, by creating additional processes and operations and flows so that you can get out of the weeds of your business. If you're looking to generate more leads and convert those leads, it's a great challenge to help you as a coach get into that next level and build those systems so that you can do what you love, which is coach. We believe coaches change the world, and we want to help you do more of the coaching side of coaching rather than the business side of coaching. Let's make that easy and simple so you can go change the world. Now, Occam, so we talked about a little bit of energy, and I know, Heather, I'm curious, what are your thoughts so far, and any questions coming up for you?
I talking about the energy and the shift and watching how they are when you're in conversation. That's what I love about this technology with Zoom, right? Because you get to not just hear them over the phone. You can work with anyone around the world, but you get to see them, and that is something that I've seen over and over. And the differences, the way they shift, the way they're sitting upright, or that excitement you talked about, Shawn, it really is powerful. And a lot of times they have no idea. So you recognizing it as the coach and being able to call it out, I think, is really, really powerful. One question I have, as far as, when you are working with clients, and this goes for all of you guys, when you're working with clients, has there ever been a time when someone is coming in thinking they're going to get the A, B, C, and D, and you're really working on the power, or on the being present instead of the process? Have there ever been any conversations or resistance in that?
Can you
Occam, we'll
say
have
that
you
again?
answer.
Yeah, can you ask that? I'm not quite getting that
Yeah,
yet.
so if you're working with clients and you're really focusing on being present, but they were coming in feeling like, I just need to be told what to do. I want the process.
Mm,
I want all of that. How does that conversation look like?
right.
For me, I could definitely say that that's definitely always part of pre-setting, right? Setting it up so that they know what they're getting, and always asking that question, never coming up being like, I've got what you need today, right? Like that's that being adaptive. That's that being able to shift with like, I may have a client who, when they booked the call, they were in a really great headspace and all they wanted to do was work on sales. But now they're coming in and they've just had a fight with their girlfriend or boyfriend. And now they're like, I can't think of anything except for this. And it's like that adaptability to be able to say, okay, you want to deal with it, or vice versa, right? They come in emotional and they actually at the end they're like, I just need this one thing done. To be able to have those multiple tools in your pocket, I think is really the best aspect for me, is to be that well-rounded individual and to say like, I'm not stuck with just this one thing, right? So that's why the grow tools and the other NLP stuff that we learned in the abundance training is actually really added to what I'm already doing with my intuition, because it's then giving me that space of like, okay, we're going a little off the rails here. Let's bring in a little bit of focus and use some of these ground rules that can actually be very grounding in an energy, right? Like if you're all out up in your head, sometimes you just need that little bit of foundation to create safety, security, and shift in that moment.
That's so good. Brian.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering a story once when I had a client who was dealing with some health issues and some really kind of stressful things, and our the way that we were doing things is we would kind of do some breathing exercises, really get her into her heart, get her out of her mind. And I remember kind of sensing that, like, okay, let's do this. She said, Brian, I don't want to do any of that breathing stuff. And what I think is really important is when you think about presence isn't just for us as a coach, it's for the client. And we have to let the client know that this is their life, they're in control. And I think about this one quote. I read it from a guy named Joseph Kwan, and it is, we can't control the ocean, we can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf. And so I think if you have someone who's like, I just need this, then we just learn how to surf. And like, I'd happy to do that, and maybe that's what you need. And then as coaches, we love our questions. What do you think the risk of me just telling you the next step is? How likely is that going to really resonate with you? But it's okay if that's what you need now. And if we do everything with purpose and you're doing this from a presence, maybe that is all you need. And yeah, so I just think we need the ability to shift to really help serve our clients instead of going, no, 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 no. I got this amazing technique. I need to be present for it. Let's get some breathing done, right? Because I
Yeah.
think that's going to be, that isn't reflecting. And I think, too, I think Sean was talking about this, is ultimately what we do as coaches is we don't do anything. We're actually just mirrors for people. So, like, all right, let's hold up the mirror. This happens. Let's explore there.
So
I
good.
do
It
think
kind of
that's a funny aspect too, because like, no, you're gonna sit here and breathe. We're gonna sit here and calm down. Like that's not gonna get anybody anywhere, right?
Right.
So
And I'm
yeah.
like, your face isn't blue. I know you're breathing.
It reminds me a little bit of the difference between a coach and a consultant, right? Like a consultant comes in with answers, a coach comes in with questions. A consultant's paid because they've experienced solving a problem and want that experience. We're paying for that experience, whereas a coach, we're paying for the skill set they bring to the conversation. And that skill set is presence, deep listening, challenging questions, etc. And so I tend to lean into process because I think ultimately I function more as a consultant and then bring in presence when I need it of, hey, I'm noticing this isn't resonating with you. What if we explore this a little bit different? And
Hey,
it also
Sean.
reminds me,
Oh, I just want to point out something that one of the things I learned through one of my certifications that it was so powerful, and I don't know if I shared this with you. Uh, when you are a coach and a consultant, because sometimes we ride that line, that wave, and the way that I heard about it is we'll consult the process and then coach the person to do that process. And I just thought that was such a powerful distinction to kind of know which hat am I wearing right now.
That's so good. And it also reminds me of like making sure that we're communicating what we're selling. That if somebody is purchasing coaching, that you're not coming in as a consultant and that you're clarifying for them this is what coaching is. Is that what you need right now or what you're looking to invest in? Or if they're hiring you as a consultant, that you set those expectations. And we can probably do a whole episode on expectation setting and boundary setting for new clients. Because I've had clients start off of I want all the consulting and then it turns into coaching, or I just want coaching and then they get frustrated of like, well, where's all of the practical tacticals? And especially when I was getting started, I didn't know how to set those expectations. There became a lot of muddiness. And I think the truth of like what leadership is as a coach, leadership in the sale, leadership in onboarding, leadership across the board is creating order and clarity where there is chaos and confusion. That is what a coach does. That's what a leader does, is create clarity where there is chaos or confusion, creating order and clarity where there's chaos and confusion. So now, before we continue this conversation, we believe in the power of questions. And what we want to do is share with you, coach, listening to this, a question you can ask in your next session. We're going to call this the quote of the week. So, Brian, go ahead and give us the quote of the week, or the question of the week. Question of the week.
Yeah. So I'm Brian Buck, and I am the Chief Abundance Officer at Abundance Worldwide. I got to share with you one of my favorite questions, and I learned this from Ryan Leake. And it is, what would you do knowing that you will fail? And so often we ask that question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? But I just love the difference in knowing that there will be failure. And what are we willing to do? And when you ask that of a client, it really helps them understand what is it that they actually want to do, that no matter what it might feel like, it's worth it. And so that's a powerful, great, exciting question to ask your client that really engages them and really helps them see in themselves. And you also most likely will have great coaching conversations on what failure means and how to go through that. So it opens up a lot of exciting things. So what would you do knowing you will fail?
I love it. That's so good. I think it also speaks to like bravery and courage and boldness and resilience. Like knowing these are going to be resources that are required and personality developments that are required in order for you to get success. What are you willing to do knowing that it's going to require bravery and courage and boldness? I love that question. Okay, so to continue our conversation, Occam, any questions coming up for the table?
Well, questions are always questions. As it comes to the being presence or versus process, I guess one thing that might be a good question to ask or to add here is, how do you know? In what ways do you guys feel into that? I mean, we talked a little bit about body, image and body language, but at what point do you guys know the conversation is like, okay, we need to bring in a different structure here. We need to bring in something more. I think that's something that especially new coaches, they get stuck in I've got to do it this way. And they don't pay attention to those little red flags, those little road signals saying, hey, you're not making the impact you want here. Let's shift the conversation. So I'm curious about what you guys would say to that.
Yeah, I think to answer that, Occam, I think it goes into that, just that flexibility. And I think one of the ways that you asked that that's coming up to me is recognizing who is having the transformation. Like if I am trying to have an impact, where I'm like, I'm not getting the impact I want, that's a me thing versus a them. So I think I would want to notice, oh, okay, maybe what they're at is just what they need to do. And that's a good way for me to have my own kind of self-reflection, is like, what in me wants that win or that mark in this process, and just allow that, and really, like you said, take the cues off of what the client needs and wants.
I love that, because then you're turning the question back to yourself, right? It's not just about the client, but like, at what point am I feeling this is necessary, or what point am I feeling unaccomplished in this goal? So I like the fact that you turn that back in on the insert inward.
The double mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I think what comes up for me is the idea that I'm not responsible for their results. They're responsible for their results. What I'm responsible for is coaching, is being present, is actively listening, is asking challenging questions, is pointing things out that I see, whether that is I see it physically or I intuitively have a gut check around it. And the insights aren't things I can give them when I'm coaching. Insights are things that they pull from within. And
Mhm.
so, as long as I'm doing my job and being a coach and creating a space where insights can flourish and setting them up to do that deep inner exploration, my job is complete. So, if that insight comes up and they reveal it to me, that's just kind of a cherry on top of, ooh, that was nice. Cool. I've had coaching sessions where the insight doesn't come in the coaching session.
Mhm.
The insight comes the next day. And then I only hear about it 7 days later when we have our next coaching call, or 2 weeks later, or whatever the cadence is. And it's at that point that I would see, oh, okay, great. The space I created allowed for an insight to flourish.
Mhm.
But if I took on the responsibility, if I have to create an insight in this call, or I have to create this wow, big moment, or big revelation, or big shift, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice and by creating unfair expectations. One of the reasons why I like longer term coaching is because you can have time margin for those insights to flourish and set that expectation of we're going to coach powerfully. I'm going to point things out. And sometimes it's going to come immediately. Sometimes your homework will be sit with it. Give yourself, like, one thing I coach our clients to do is create a sacred space for yourself where it is just you. There's no distractions. Maybe you have a pen or pencil and a journal, and that's it. You have soft music, and you kind of create the space after our sessions for you to explore and ask yourself, what is coming up for me? What
Digest.
truth do I need to know that my body might know, but my mind hasn't caught it yet?
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
allows for that deep exploration after the coaching session.
I love what you're saying about that, Sean, because it also makes me think ultimately one of the ways that I've approached coaching is, especially thinking about the difference between coaching and therapy, coaching often needs to help people get into action, where therapy maybe there's a little more exploring and understanding. And so yeah, I think that is really good that yeah, we don't need to have the insight in the hour or whatever time we have, but do we get to enough understanding that we could create an action plan, because they're going to learn more by doing than by sitting here talking about it. Or even once again, if they have that giant eureka moment, if they don't do anything with it, it's just going to be something they have to watch the recording again to remember when life creeps into them.
I think for
Heather,
me, yeah, I do a lot of consulting because I work with a lot of photographers and other entrepreneurs with the financial side of things. And so there's a lot of action-based steps. So going into the calls, I have a plan of what we're going to discuss, and often it'll shift. And a lot of times it literally comes from our celebrations and gratitudes. We start, hey, want to hear, let's use celebrations and gratitudes. And sometimes it's just in how they share. We talked about this, how they showed up. Well, I mean, I got this done and I got a new client, and that's like their energy. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Can you say that again? What just happened? They're like, well, I got a new client. I'm like, oh, can you say it again? I'll keep, we'll just kind of keep saying it. And then like, I landed a new $5,000 client. I'm like, okay, that is amazing. And we kind of lean into that a little bit more about, so what's the feeling around that? And just ask me more, like, tell me more about that.
Mhm.
Well, this week I was just really discouraged. Okay, gosh, tell me more about why you're discouraged in that moment. And it becomes more of the coaching and not as much consulting. But by the end of the call, after kind of working through some of those things, we're like, hey, here's the one thing, like Sean was saying, let's get one action item, so they can leave having explored their feelings and then feeling better about the things that they actually were celebrating, but it didn't feel like it because they were like this about getting a client. And then we have an action that'll take them and just kind of propel them and move them forward even faster.
Yeah.
So
This has
good.
been such a fun conversation. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up. So I just want to give everyone an opportunity. Is there something that we haven't asked that you're like, I just want to say this one more thing around the topic of process versus presence? And I'll start. I think we also need to think about, and something I found in my coaching is when you think about your program, I often had way too prescribed programs that when stuff comes up in the middle, I didn't have any space without saying, well, do you want to buy a couple more? So I actually build in like 2 or 3 open sessions to allow that flexibility as stuff comes up. Anyone else have something else you want to share?
Just I was just going to answer my own question and part of what you're saying, right, is to also say like, okay, I may be running through this structure that I have or this framework that I have, but taking that moment to check in with yourself, like you said, how am I feeling about this? But then also to put that on them and to reflect that into them. Like, I see that something's happening right now. I can see that your body's doing something different. Can you tap in and just tell me, what are you feeling in this moment? What emotions are coming up? What thoughts are coming up that you're not verbally sharing that I can actually see living in your body? So those kinds of questions are always super important. How are you feeling as opposed to how are you thinking? And so that's something that I share.
So powerful.
You know what's coming up for me is, and I'll close with this, unless Heather says something, is the slowing down yourself, slowing down what you're sharing, slowing down your cadence, pulls people in, draws people in, and gives you the space and the margin to really pay attention. So presence for me oftentimes looks like holding back for 5 seconds once they're done so that I can then really process what they said and not just respond to it. Oftentimes, when I'm holding for 5 seconds, sometimes I'm literally counting 1, 2, 3. At 3 seconds, 4 seconds, they'll jump in with even more information or insight because they might be uncomfortable with the silence. And so they'll reveal more that we can then coach on.
That
And
is
so,
possibly the strongest tool that you've ever shared with me, is that power of the pause and to create that uncomfortable silence so that they will go deeper than just the one word answer. And I like how you tip, like, just when you're about to talk, take a drink of water. And I like that might be one of the most front loaded tools that you've ever given me, and something that I use regularly in sales calls as well as sessions, just to create that power of that space, that power of that pause.
We need to
so
see if
good.
we can
Heather,
get the
final
rights
word.
to. Just really quick, I think we should get the rights to Depeche Mode's "Enjoy the Silence" as some kind of a theme song for what we're doing. It'd be awesome. Go ahead,
I
Heather.
love it. Heather.
No, I really don't have anything else to add. I've loved this conversation. I love being a part of this. And I know that there have already been several gold nuggets that people that are listening are going to be able to take away and implement right away into their practice. And so I think it's just a great opportunity for us to be able to connect and get together again, but be able to make some powerful changes in everybody else's business as well.
So good. So let's go ahead and close with this. Brian, biggest takeaway from today?
I think just the biggest takeaway is being. There's no way anybody can coach without presence. So don't get too lost in the process. You need presence, or else it's not good for you, not good for the clients.
So good. Heather.
And I think being flexible, being open to seeing which way things go. Like I said, when I first started, it felt like I had to do it a certain way. And the more I became comfortable with sharing and being present and knowing when is the right time to do both, that the impact that I've been able to have on my clients has been profound. So just lean in. I think enjoy the process, and lean in and use your intuition to figure out how to use process versus being in presence.
So good. And Occam, our guest coach.
I would say that it's about knowing thyself, right? Because even in this, just in this 4-pack, we were literally right down the middle split as far as presence or process. So being a little bit more in tune with yourself and which one of those things feels better to you so that you can use them adequately and not feel forced to use the processes if you're a presence person and not feel forced to do the presence if you're a process person. So having that self exploration and knowing that it's always going to be a mix, just like any good recipe, right? You've got to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that to make the real good sauce.
So good. And I'll close with this is slow down. Walk slower, breathe in deeper, listen more presently and powerfully and intently and actively. And as you slow down, you'll begin to take notice of things that you weren't able to see before. It reminds me of the story of this man who is running from a lion, gets to a cliff, starts climbing down the cliff. He looks up to the lion's waiting for him up. He looks down and he notices if he slips, he falls massively down this valley. And what he decides to do is he takes a deep breath in, he looks to his left, and he finds a strawberry. He plucks the strawberry, he eats the strawberry, and he thinks to himself, this is the greatest strawberry I have ever eaten in my entire life. And it's such a good reminder that no matter what might be happening ahead of you, what may be behind you, that being in the moment, you will find these glimmers of flavor and juice that you may have not seen if you were too distracted and thinking of too many things. Now, here's your next step. Take the One Client Away Challenge. Go to clientschallenge.com. If you're looking to level up your lead gen, your lead conversion, if you're looking to create more processes in place and build a sales system that gets you out of the weeds of the sales, but allows you to just do what you love doing, which is coach powerfully, this challenge is for you. You'll be able to click the link in the show notes. I've been ShawnQ. We have Brian Buck, Occam Wood, and Heather Wanninger. We're all with Abundance Worldwide, and we'll see you on the next Coach's Table.